feeling forgotten by God. He sees you, hears you, and heals you. Have you ever cried alone in the middle of the night, pillow soaked with tears, and wondered if anyone even noticed? Have you ever walked through pain so deep that words failed you, and silence became your only prayer? Maybe you're in that place right now. Maybe you've been carrying a weight that no one else sees. A smile on the outside, but barely holding it together on the inside. If that's you, I want you to lean in, because what I'm about to share isn't just encouragement, it's truth. And it's not my truth, it's God. You see the pain you're carrying? God sees it. The prayers you've whispered, the ones you didn't even know how to put into words. He's heard everyone, and the healing you've been hoping for, maybe for days, maybe for years, it's not forgotten. It's not delayed without purpose. The Bible tells us again and again that we serve a God who isn't distant from our pain. He's not standing at a distance, arms crossed, waiting for us to figure it out. He is near, he is attentive, and he is full of compassion. I get it. Life doesn't always make sense. Sometimes you pray and nothing changes, at least not right away. Sometimes the people who promise to be there vanish. Sometimes it feels like the pain wins. But what if I told you that even in your darkest, most hopeless moment, you are not abandoned? What if I told you that there is a God who not only knows what you're going through, but feels it with you? This isn't a feel-good message for likes or views. This is about the heart of God, who He is, what He sees, what He hears, and how He heals. This is about a God who met Hagar in the wilderness when she thought no one cared. It's about a God who heard the cry of the Israelites in slavery and moved heaven and earth to set them free. It's about a God who wept with Mary and Martha when their brother died, and who restored the sight of the blind, the dignity of the shamed, and the soul of the sinner. That same God is still doing those things today. So if you're tired, broken, confused, or barely hanging on, this message is for you. God sees you. He hears you. And yes, He will heal you. Let's walk through this together. Because hope is not lost, and your story isn't over. Part 1. The God who sees. Sometimes the hardest part about pain isn't the pain itself. It's feeling invisible in the middle of it. Have you ever looked around and thought, does anyone even see what I'm going through? People walk by, conversations happen, life goes on, and yet there you are, stuck in your own storm, wondering if anyone notices you're drowning. If that's ever been you, I want you to know something powerful. God sees, not in a distant, general kind of way, not in a He sees everybody way. No, He sees you specifically, intimately, constant. Let me take you back to a moment in Genesis 16. There's a woman named Hagar. She's a servant. She's been mistreated, rejected, used, and discarded. So she runs into the wilderness, not knowing where to go, pregnant, alone, and full of pain. And it's there, not in a palace, not in a temple, there in the middle of her brokenness, that the angel of the Lord finds her. And what does she say? She gives God a name. She calls Him El Roi, the God who sees me. Think about that. Her situation didn't immediately change. She was still in a wilderness. She was still facing uncertainty. But something inside her shifted when she realized that she was seen. And when you know God sees you, really sees you, something inside you changes too. Maybe you feel a little like Hagar, pushed out, mistreated, unnoticed. Maybe life hasn't been fair, and you've questioned whether your suffering even matters. Let me tell you this with full assurance. God has not taken His eyes off you. The same God who saw Hagar sees you. Psalm 33:18 says, "But the eyes of the Lord are on those who fear Him, on those whose hope is in His unfailing love." And Proverbs 15:3 tells us, "The eyes of the Lord are everywhere, keeping watch on the wicked and the good." That means even when you think you're forgotten, even when you feel like your pain is too small or too complicated for anyone to care. God sees every tear, every sigh, every silent plea. Jesus, too, was always looking. He noticed the ones no one else did. The blind beggar on the roadside, crying out when everyone else told him to be quiet. Jesus stopped. The woman with the issue of blood, who touched his cloak and tried to slip away unnoticed. Jesus turned and looked for her, the woman at the well, whose shame had kept her hidden. Jesus saw straight into her soul and still chose to speak life into her. God doesn't just see the cleaned-up version of you. He sees the raw, honest, hurting parts. And he doesn't turn away. You might be in a wilderness season like Hagar. Maybe you've been wronged, betrayed, left behind. But even there, especially there, God sees you. And when God sees you, he doesn't just observe, he moves. Part 2, the God who hears. Have you ever cried out and felt like your words hit the ceiling and bounced back down? Like you were shouting into a void and no one, not even God, was listening? I want to be honest here. It's one of the hardest things to wrestle with in faith. We pray, we cry, we beg, and sometimes heaven feels silent. But here's the truth Scripture declares over and over again. God hears you. He doesn't just hear your well-worded prayers. He hears your groans. He hears the sobs in the shower. He hears the breathless, broken prayers you can't even form into sentences. And he cares. Psalm 34:17 says, "The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles." You might say, well, I don't feel very righteous. But guess what? God isn't listening because of how perfect your record is. He's listening because of how perfect his love is. Remember the Israelites in Egypt. Generations of slavery. Years of crying out for help. It probably felt like God had forgotten them. But Exodus 2:24 says, God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant. He moved. He responded, not because their prayers were fancy, but because they were real. And there's Hannah, a woman who wanted a child so badly she could hardly breathe from the ache. She went to the temple and prayed with such deep emotion that the priest thought she was drunk. But God knew her heart. He heard the pain behind the prayer, and he answered. I want you to hear this clearly. God hears you even when you have no words. Romans 8:26 tells us that when we don't know what to pray, the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. That means your silence isn't a barrier. Your exhaustion isn't a problem. Your grief doesn't disqualify you. Heaven knows exactly what's going on inside of you even when you can't explain it. Jesus heard cries that others ignored. The man lowered through the roof. Jesus saw the faith, heard the unspoken need, and healed him. The thief on the cross. Jesus heard a whispered, last-minute plea for mercy and promised him paradise. The crowd might overlook you. People may grow tired of your story. But God's ear is always open. Maybe you've prayed for healing that hasn't come yet. Maybe you've begged for peace but feel the same anxiety when you wake up. Maybe you've cried out in the night and wondered why the answer hasn't shown up. Let me encourage you with this. God hears, and God acts, often in ways we don't see right away. Sometimes the greatest evidence of his listening is not in the immediate fix, but in the strength he gives you to make it through one more day. Sometimes it's the unexpected peace in the middle of chaos. Sometimes it's a friend who shows up right when you need them. These aren't coincidences. These are whispers from heaven saying, I hear you, child. I haven't left you. So don't stop praying. Don't stop crying out. Don't stop being honest with God. He's not tired of you. He's not annoyed. He's not distant. He is close, and he's listening right now. Part 3. The God who heals. You know what's even harder than hurting? Hurting and feeling like it will never end. When pain drags on, when the emotional wounds just won't close, when the physical illness doesn't go away, or when the grief feels like a permanent part of your life, it's easy to start wondering, will I ever feel whole again? But I want to speak life over you today. God is still a healer. From the very beginning, healing has been part of who God is. In Exodus 15:26, God says to the people of Israel, "I am the Lord who heals you." He didn't say, "I was" or "I used to be." He said, "I am." That means right now, present tense. That's his heart. When Jesus walked the earth, healing wasn't just something he did. It was an expression of God's love. Everywhere he went, people followed him not because he was popular, but because they were desperate. They were blind, sick, demon-possessed, bleeding, broken, paralyzed, and shunned, and Jesus healed them all. Matthew 4:24 says, "People brought to him all who were ill with various diseases, those suffering severe pain, and he healed them." Not a few, not the ones who deserved it. All. Now let's talk about what healing actually looks like, because sometimes we put God in a box. We assume healing only counts if it's instant or visible. But the Bible shows us that healing is layered. There's physical healing. We see this when Jesus healed the leper, gave sight to the blind, and made the lame walk. Those stories are real, and God still heals bodies today. He created your body, and he's able to restore it. There's emotional healing. Psalm 147:3 says, "He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds." Some of you are smiling on the outside, but shattered on the inside. And while doctors can mend bones, only God can mend hearts. The kind of healing that brings peace to your soul when life has given you every reason to fall apart. Then there's spiritual healing. This is the deepest healing of all, the healing of your soul. Isaiah 53:5 says, "By his wounds we are healed." That's not just about sickness. It's about sin, shame, separation. Jesus took all of it on himself so that we could be free. That's healing. But what about when healing doesn't come the way we hoped? What about when you prayed, fasted, believed, and still haven't seen the miracle? Let me gently remind you of the Apostle Paul. In 2 Corinthians 12, he talks about a thorn in the flesh. We don't know exactly what it was, but it was painful, and he begged God 3 times to take it away. And God did. Instead, God said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Sometimes God's healing looks like removal, but sometimes it looks like sustaining power in the middle of the storm. Both are miracles. So if you're still waiting on healing, physically, emotionally, spiritually, don't give up. Don't assume God has ignored you. He may be working in ways you can't see. And even in the waiting, he's healing places in you that you didn't even know were broken. Keep trusting. Keep leaning in. He's not done. Part 4. Biblical characters who experienced God's seeing, hearing, and healing. Sometimes the best way to understand God's heart is to look at how he's shown up in the lives of real people. Flawed, broken people just like us. The Bible isn't a book of perfect heroes. It's a collection of people who encountered a perfect God. And through their stories, we see how God sees, hears, and heals. Let's start with Job. If anyone knew pain, it was him. He lost his family, his health, his wealth, everything. His friends didn't understand him, and even his wife told him to give up. And though Job wrestled with questions, with grief, with deep sorrow, God never left him. God saw every moment of his suffering. And in the end, not only did God restore Job, he doubled what had been taken. Job's story reminds us that even when life makes no sense, God is still faithful. Then there's David, the shepherd boy turned king. He wasn't perfect, far from it. He committed sins that should have disqualified him. He faced betrayal, war, loss, and intense emotional torment. But David was honest with God. He cried, lamented, confessed, and God heard every word. Psalm 41 says, "I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry." David reminds us that no matter how messy your story is, God can redeem it. Let's talk about Elijah. This mighty prophet had just called down fire from heaven, seen God move in powerful ways, and yet right after, he fled into the wilderness, depressed, suicidal, and afraid. He sat under a tree and asked God to take his life. But what did God do? He didn't rebuke Elijah for feeling weak. He fed him, let him rest, spoke to him gently. Elijah encountered God, not in the earthquake or fire, but in a whisper. God saw Elijah's exhaustion, heard his despair, and healed him with quiet presence. Then we have the woman at the well in John 4. Talk about someone who felt disqualified. 5 failed relationships. Living with a man who wasn't her husband. Coming to the well at a time when no one else would be there. Likely to avoid judgment. But Jesus went out of his way to meet her. He saw her shame, heard her story, and healed her identity. And she went from hiding to becoming a bold evangelist in her city. One conversation with Jesus changed everything. And finally, Peter. Loud, passionate, impulsive Peter. He promised Jesus he'd never leave him, and then denied him 3 times in his greatest moment of need. The shame must have been crushing. But after the resurrection, Jesus doesn't scold him. He seeks him out, cooks him breakfast, and asks, "Do you love me?" 3 times. 1 for every denial. That's grace. That's healing. Jesus saw Peter's failure, heard his heart, and restored his calling. You see, these stories aren't just ancient history. They're proof that God sees the struggler, hears the cry of the broken, and heals in ways that go beyond the surface. And if he did it for them, he can do it for you. Your pain is not the end of your story. God is writing something deeper, more redemptive, more beautiful than you could ever imagine. Keep trusting him. Keep believing. The same God of Job, David, Elijah, the woman at the well, and Peter is your God too. Part 5, Jesus, the ultimate expression of God's love in our pain. If you've ever wondered what God is really like in the middle of your suffering, just look at Jesus. Jesus is the clearest, most complete picture of who God is. And when he stepped into this broken world, he didn't come as a distant king or a detached observer. He came close. He came as Emmanuel, God with us, not just in the good, but in the mess, the pain, the betrayal, the grief, the sleepless nights, and the silent tears. Hebrews 4:15 tells us something incredible. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. That means Jesus gets it. He understands pain. He experienced betrayal from close friends. He wept over loss. He felt the sting of rejection. He battled temptation. He faced anxiety so deep that he sweat drops of blood in Gethsemane. And on the cross, he endured the greatest agony of all. Not just physical torture, but the weight of the world's sin. Your sin, my sin. So when you cry out in pain, you're not crying to a God who can't relate. You're crying to the one who bore it all. Jesus didn't avoid the hurting. He ran to them. When the woman caught in adultery was thrown at his feet, he stooped down with her. When the lepers were outcasts, he touched them. When children were seen as a bother, he welcomed them. When the widow's only son died, he raised him. When Jairus' daughter lay lifeless, he brought her back. When the bleeding woman reached for the hem of his robe, he turned around to call her daughter. Jesus saw what others missed. He heard cries that others ignored. He gave healing to people who had given up hope. And he's still doing that. He hasn't changed. Hebrews 13:8 says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. That means the same compassion, the same power, the same mercy he showed in the Bible. He's showing right now to you. And here's something beautiful. Jesus didn't just heal bodies. He healed identities. He restored purpose. He spoke peace into storms. He silenced shame. He brought dignity to the overlooked. Because the greatest healing isn't just when your circumstances change. It's when you are changed from the inside out. Let's not forget this. Jesus didn't just come to bring temporary healing. He came to bring eternal hope. Revelation 21:4 says, He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. That day is coming. But even while we wait for that future, Jesus gives us hope for today. So if you've ever asked, where is God in my pain? The answer is right there, with you, holding you, carrying you, healing you, in ways you might not even realize yet. Because He sees, He hears, and through Jesus He has already begun the healing. Part 6, Practical Steps for the Hurting. Everything we've talked about so far is truth from the Word of God. But maybe now you're asking, what do I do with all this? How do I hold on when I'm still in the middle of it? That's a real question. So let's talk about some real, honest steps you can take right now. First, pour your heart out in prayer. You don't have to have perfect words. Just be honest. Be raw. Tell God exactly how you feel. Cry if you need to. Be silent if you need to. Don't filter your emotions. He already knows them. Psalm 62:8 says, Pour out your hearts to Him, for God is our refuge. That means your prayers don't have to be polished, they just need to be real. Second, find healing in God's Word. When you're hurting, the Bible isn't just a book. It's life. It's medicine for your soul. Psalm 107:20 says, He sent out His word and healed them. That's power. Read the Psalms, let David's cries echo your own. Meditate on Jesus' word. Let the promises of God wrap around your heart like a blanket in the cold. Even if you read just one verse a day, let it speak. Third, let God use people to help you. You weren't meant to walk through pain alone. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to let someone in. God often uses people, friends, family, pastors, counselors to bring healing and comfort. Don't isolate. Reach out. Share your story. There's strength in vulnerability. Fourth, trust the process of healing. Healing takes time. It doesn't always come overnight, but that doesn't mean God isn't working. Like a wound that heals slowly beneath a bandage. God is doing things in you that you can't always see. Trust His timing. Trust His heart. And keep moving forward, one small step at a time. Fifth, hold on to hope. Even if everything around you feels broken, hope is not gone. Romans 15:13 says, May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in Him. That kind of hope doesn't come from circumstances. It comes from knowing who holds your future. And He's good. And let me say this. If you're still waiting for the healing, the answer, the breakthrough, that doesn't mean your faith is weak. It means you're human. Keep believing anyway, because even in your waiting, God is still working. Conclusion, your pain is not wasted. If you've made it this far, I want to say something simple but powerful. Thank you for holding on. Because I know that when you're in pain, listening to hope can feel heavy. But you did it. You stayed. You leaned in, and I believe that was no accident. God brought you here not just to watch a video or hear some nice words, but to remind you of something eternal. You are not forgotten. Your pain is not ignored, and your story is far from over. You might still be in the middle of your valley. The diagnosis might still be real. The heartbreak might still sting. The questions might still go unanswered. But even here, especially here, God is present. He is the God who saw Hagar when she had no one. He is the God who heard the cries of a nation in slavery. He is the God who healed the blind, the bleeding, the broken, and still does. He is the God who wept with the grieving and walked with the suffering. He is the God who stepped into pain so we'd never have to face it alone. And more than that, He is the God who redeems pain, who brings beauty from ashes, who turns mourning into dancing, who writes resurrection into every hopeless story. So don't let go of hope. Not now. Not when healing could be one breath away, one prayer away, one moment away. Keep reaching, keep trusting, keep speaking His name. Jesus sees you. Jesus hears you. Jesus is healing you. And if you need someone to stand with you in that, leave a comment below. Let this be a space where we hold each other up, where faith rises again, and where no one walks through pain alone. Because in the end, your pain is not wasted. In God's hands, even your deepest wound can become a well of healing for you, and maybe even for someone else. You are not alone. You are not unseen. You are not unloved. And you are not done yet. Let hope live again.